What's going on, movie fans? Welcome to MovieRounders.com, the world's first 360-degree movie review site. I'm Matt, Bethany, Tony, and Daniel, and we are here to review Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Well, at least half of us are. So if you guys want to turn your cameras to Daniel and Bethany, they are the ones who saw it. Well, Tony and I will listen and give you our thoughts of the movie just by listening to them.
Slacker.
So we're going to go ahead and start with Bethany here. And Bethany, what'd you think? Did it take you back to the neighborhood?
I do not remember ever actually watching Mr. Rogers as a kid.
I was going to say, she's young enough.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is set in 98, and he's still making episodes, so it was still a thing. I was born in 94. It was still a thing, but I don't ever remember watching it. I remember watching, like, old school Cartoon Network and with Bugs Bunny and that kind of stuff. But in the old school, like, black and white Addams Family, but I don't remember ever watching Mr. Rogers. So don't have a huge connection to him. I love what his message and what he meant for children, not even just children, but for teenagers and adults and elderly people. So I didn't have that connection, so I wasn't looking at it through, like, rose-colored lenses, I think. This was a bonkers movie to me. It was just bonkers. Bonkers. Everything, if it's either bonkers or it's bananas for me, and this was bonkers. It's. I kind of like. I was sitting there. I was like, are we moving back and forth in time? Is this Inception? Like, what is going on here? Not to say that it's a bad thing, because I think overall the movie itself is, and I was talking to Tony about this earlier. It's marketed as, I believe, a biopic about Mr. Rogers. But it's not. It's more of a biopic about the guy who writes the Times article about him, Lloyd Vogel. And you're seeing Mr. Rogers' impact through the eyes of someone who's a skeptic of Mr. Rogers. And that's honestly the best way to see Mr. Rogers' impact. If you saw it through his eyes, it would be a rose-colored lens, I think. Now, it would have been cool to see the things, like, because Mr. Rogers in the movie, he talks about how difficult it is for him, or his wife talks about how difficult it is, like, you know, the things that he goes and how hard he works at being Mr. Rogers is. It would be very neat to see that, but it's very telling to see his impact through, like I said, through the eyes of a skeptic. I think that's the easiest way to get it across and to make you realize why Mr. Rogers is such an icon of American history and pop culture and everything like that. So, Daniel?
Yeah.
Can you help me here?
Well, of course. Well, I want to tell you, I mean, my biggest thing is I would say this was a failed opportunity to do something great with Mr. Rogers. I mean, yes, it was a movie about a skeptic, a person that, you know, didn't believe that he was such a nice guy.
I mean, he was looking for, like, faults in his character.
Exactly. But the thing is like, anybody that knows, like, the history of Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers,
he was not a sharpshooter.
No. Was that, like, he actually single-handedly probably saved public television by speaking before Congress. There was no mention of that anywhere in this movie. He had such an impact on people's lives.
I've watched that footage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, when I was a kid, I mean, that was an everyday thing for me. Every day I sat down and watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Every day I saw him do hand puppets and stuff. It was formulative in my childhood. He was my Barney or my VeggieTales or my name something, you know, my Frozen. You know, I mean, that show, it was formative of my childhood. And when I first got into this movie, I was like, whoa, I want to, you know, I just feel kind of let down because I wanted to, and I didn't want it to be like a movie where they just glorified him and, you know, everything like that. But they did discuss that, and they talked about that, how he was saintly or whatever. But
and how he hates to be thought of that way.
Yeah,
because, or his wife says it, that if you think of him as a saint, then you're saying everything that he is unattainable, and it's not. We could all be more like Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, and like she said, you know, in the movie, I don't want to give anything away, but, you know, it's hard work. Being Mr. Rogers was really hard work. So, but I don't know. I mean, once I got past the initial, you know, what is this movie about? What is the story? You know, because I wish that I hadn't went into the movie thinking, oh, okay, it's going to be about his life. Because that's kind of what I was expecting. And when I found out that the movie's not even really about him, you're just going, whoa. And then you have to figure it out. And then you find out it's about the guy who's writing the article. But I got a lot out of it. I got an overriding message from the movie, and to me that message is, everybody is a human being, and everybody is trying their best to make it in their life, and Mr. Rogers was one of those people who tried to help people see that.
So is it one of those movies that got tripped up on itself trying to do that message instead of about what they implied in the trailer that it was? Or
it was marketed totally different than what it was. So
it's
just
like,
know that going in.
Yeah, it's like The Witch. If you remember that movie, came out like 2015, 2016. It's marketed as this really scary horror movie, but that's not what it is.
Yeah.
And everything. Whereas this isn't. It's marketed as a Mr. Rogers biopic. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. It's marketed that way.
That's what it seemed like to me.
That's how it felt. And that's not what it is. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that if they had marketed it another way, I don't think it's easy to market how Mr. Rogers converts a skeptic into being a better person, because this dude is not likable at all. He's a jerk. Like, the author of the Mr. Rogers article, you want to punch this dude in the face. Like, he's very self-centered and all about himself, and he's married and he has like a 6-month-old kid and everything, but he's just so self-centered. And as he's sitting down with Mr. Rogers, you see him getting really frustrated because he doesn't think Mr. Rogers is taking him seriously. He thinks Mr. Rogers is a gimmick that he just does for the camera. But the more he sees Mr. Rogers, he watches old episodes, and the more he talks with him, he's like, this dude is legit, and he has like this really profound impact on this guy's life, and not just like his life, but his life that he has with his family as well, because his family life is not that great. Not even just with his wife and his child, it's with his father and his sister and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So,
and I can tell you, the movie does have a good message, because I know so many people that are dealing with the stuff that guy was dealing with. Just a cynic of life. I'm sick of everyone. I'm sick of people being fake. I just want somebody to be real with me. I'm sick of this world.
And the reason the guy is like this is he's an investigative journalist. He doesn't do puff pieces, and that's what he calls it. It's a puff piece. Right. Because it's for the...
So he's like, I'm going to root this fake dude out.
Yeah.
He's not pulling that crap with me. I'm going to get to the bottom line. Who is this guy?
I'm going to expose him.
Yeah, I'm going to expose him. So, and then he finds out, hey, this dude's a real deal. He's like, actually cares about people. He cares about me. Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
All right, Bethany, what would you give the movie?
Overall, I'll give it a 3. It's not a bad movie. It's missable. But if you watch it, you're going to come away learning some things that you didn't know before. You're going to come away hopefully looking at life in a little bit different view. And it's hard to sum a movie of like this up, because it was like a fever dream. It literally has a fever dream in it at some point. And in a way, it does feel like a fever dream, because like I said, it's so weird when you watch it, the way it's told. But as it goes on, you either get adjusted to it, or it kind of moves into a more normalized storytelling format, which makes it easier. But I'll give it a 3-star. I don't mean to miss it, but I mean, if you do miss it, that's okay. But if you do get the chance to watch it, if you're just like looking for something to watch one day, I definitely recommend watching it. It's just full of interesting little things that I don't think a lot of us knew about before, or anything like that. So.
And I think if you're not confused by the marketing, if you come in knowing that it's not what it kind of implies that it is, maybe you would kind of approach it differently than someone who might be coming in thinking, oh, it's all going to be about that, and find out it's being told a totally different way.
Yes.
Yeah. Daniel, what would you rate it?
Okay, well, I'm going to have to say, let me just say this first. Okay, so it's a movie about a guy from the perspective of another person. Okay, so with that being said, it is what it is. I mean, there's no way we could have a biopic about a person that was so famous and not know anything about his life. I mean, his life was sort of wrapped in mystery anyways. People didn't really know a lot about him. There wasn't a lot of firsthand experiences with him per se, so it's from the basis from another person's perspective in one event. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to have to give it a 4, just because it could have been so much better. It had so much potential. a wasted story.
That's 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Just because I like the story, I love Mr. Rogers, but it could have had a 5 if it would have just had more stuff about who Mr. Rogers was and a little bit more about his life. I mean, to me, because he is a wonderful person and he should be celebrated. I mean, you know.
I like how it comes across as like you didn't really like the movie and I liked it more than you, but I gave it a lower rating than you did.
I was like, I was a little confused.
I know, because you said a 4 and you're just like, I was like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm disappointed. I mean, you know.
All right, guys, that's their review of Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Make sure you stay tuned because I'm pretty sure we're going to do a top 5 of the people that Bethany would like to punch movie character-wise. We're getting up there. But have you seen the movie? What did you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, watch us here at movierounders.com where we review the movie and you control the camera.